Hello everyone, my name is Tara Jyoti Lodh. I'm a customer engineer specializing on infrastructure modernization with Google Cloud. Today we're going to talk about disaster recovery and see how you can build your disaster recovery on Google Cloud for your mission critical applications. Let's understand the industry a little. So if you look at the industry today, majority of the industries are going through a digital transformation. Every industry is becoming a digital industry today, right? Let's take an example of a couple of them. So let's understand our automobile industry. Automobile industry is becoming digital as most of the updates are happening from your mobile phone and your laptop. If you look at drug discovery is also more of a data and AI problem with chemistry into it. If you look at financial services is again becoming a supply chain of digital devices. With this change in the industry and industries adopting more and more digital, there's a huge amount of data that each enterprise is collecting. And it's very difficult to manage all this in the data center. So cloud becomes a natural choice for industries. Certain estimates suggest by 2022, 70% of enterprises would have integrated management across public and private cloud. As industries look at different business model and they are reinventing the business models to suit your customer needs, digital transformation is a key that every enterprise is taking the journey on. Estimates suggest by 2024, 50% of IT spend would be towards digital transformation and innovation. This leading to a lot of AI that customers are now looking at, and they're trying to leverage AI to help them build new business models, customize experiences for their customers, and help them optimize operations to drive down the cost. By 2025, estimates suggest that there will be 90% of enterprise applications would have embedded AI built in. Now, if you look at digital payment, so digital payment industry have again gone through a tremendous change. In last 5 years, UPI have really picked up. UPI today does nearly 2 billion transactions a month. These transactions have some very specific needs. The needs are very low latency, nearly zero technical declines, and business continuity for banks. So this is how the digital payments have been evolving, and these are key requirements that banks have today to sustain their digital payment ecosystem. And that's where disaster recovery becomes more and more important. On the top of it, if you look at industries like public sector, healthcare, life sciences, retail, to name a few, these industries have data compliance needs and residency needs where they have to keep the data in the country. All these are critical for businesses, and Google Cloud is helping customers in each of these industries to ensure that they maintain their resilience and compliance by keeping the data in country and helping them build their resilience architecture on Google Cloud. Why does it matter? Downtimes are expensive for businesses. Estimates suggest for a minute of downtime, an enterprise would lose upwards of $9,000, which translates to roughly $13 million loss for a day of downtime. This is huge, just not from a commercial perspective, but also the reputation of an enterprise, which is much tougher to recover from. Businesses want insurance from these kind of unexpected and unpredicted, and that's where backup and disaster recovery is really the center of all this. Now, if you look at the requirements that the customer have, they're broadly categorized into three different requirements. First, the data have to be redundant and recoverable from any kind of loss. Loss because of human error, loss because of application errors. The infrastructure that the businesses are running on should be restorable and highly available. And third, businesses should be able to retain their data for long-term archival and compliance needs. These are the three requirements that businesses at a very, very high level have. These three requirements translate to what we call as backup, disaster recovery, and archival for your data. And in Google Cloud, we call it as data protection to club them all three under one umbrella. Today, we're going to talk about disaster recovery and see how Google Cloud can help you to build your disaster recovery on Google Cloud. Let's look at DR patterns. If you look at DR patterns today, there are three patterns that emerge: the cold pattern, warm pattern, and a hot pattern. Based on your RTO and RPO, you decide either of these patterns. Let's understand this with an analogy. The analogy is of a car and running, and a car has a flat. So if you are on a journey and a car has a flat, and if you don't have a spare capacity, you have to stop your journey, get help, and replace your tire, and then you can continue your journey. This is equivalent to your cold pattern. Moving on the spectrum, you can have a spare capacity available with you, but you still have to stop your car, replace your tire, and then you can start the journey, which is equivalent to a warm pattern. Your downtime is comparatively low because you're not waiting for a help to come, but you still have a downtime. Now think of a situation where you have a flat and you can move your car without stopping. You might reduce the speed, but you still continue your journey. That is what we call as a hot pattern. Based on your requirement, you can select either of the patterns to build your DR on Google Cloud. Now, you can evolve your patterns as you move in the spectrum. You can start small by doing backup on cloud. You can move your critical data on cloud. Your application is running on premises, and all the critical data goes on cloud, and you can back up your data on cloud to start small with. As you move, you can build your DR site on cloud, and you can have your application running in production in your data center. So your data center becomes your production, and Google Cloud becomes your DR site, where you can continuously replicate your data, which is important for your disaster recovery. Moving on, you can build your production and DR both on Google Cloud, leveraging multiple regions. Now, as you start building your disaster recovery, it's important that you have support, just not from in terms of having disaster recovery, but the ecosystem around it. And Google Cloud have this covered for you. Google Cloud tightly integrates with multiple disaster recovery and backup technologies and partners, where you can use whatever you have in your data center today. So if to name a few, partners like Commvault, Zerto, Veeam, we have tight integration with all these partners. So if you are using any of these products, you can continue using that, and you can still build your DR on Google Cloud. You can also leverage our own GCP native product, which is called Actifio, for your DR and backup needs. Based on our experience with multiple customers building the DR strategy, we have come up with repeatable patterns, which you can leverage and see what works for your application. And all this on Google Cloud, which is managed and monitored by our SRE team to give you higher uptimes. If you look at India specifically, what is there for you from Google Cloud? So Google Cloud today has two regions in India, one in Delhi, another in Mumbai. So we are the only hypercloud with two regions in two different seismic zones, with 3 availability zone in each region for you. This helps you to build your production and DR out of India without moving any data out of the country. So whatever may be your resilience and compliance need, you can do all that on Google Cloud. Now, you can set up your application in a hot architecture where you can run your production out of Delhi region and your DR out of Mumbai, or vice versa based on your requirement. And you can run out of both of these regions in a hot architecture, just not leveraging multi-region, but also the technologies that help you to build your application to sustain this kind of multi-regional architecture. So to name a few, technologies like Cloud Spanner, technologies like our global load balancer, which helps you to distribute and build distributed applications across multiple regions. Now, as you start building your DR, right, there's certain tips that we want to talk about as you start building it. The most important thing is your RTO RPI, as we discussed. It's important that you identify your RTO RPO, because based on your RTO RPO, you would decide what kind of DR pattern would you choose. Then the second important thing is identifying your dependency patterns. So identify your dependencies in your infrastructure and document them well. Look at the repeatable patterns that are available from Google Cloud and see which suits your application architecture. Next, look at your security closely. You need to have your security posture similar to your production to be compliant from your DR perspective. And last but not the least, test your DR frequently on Google Cloud so that whenever you really need it, you are compliant with your compliance needs. Now, as we talked about, there is a huge spectrum of reliability that you can achieve. You can go small and you can have your lower environments like your test environments or a dev environment run in a single zone. Your production environments can run leveraging high availability and hot DR in a regional architecture where you can use multiple zones to set up all this. And for your mission critical application, you can go for a multi-regional architecture where you can leverage two regions in India to have your multi-regional architecture out of India. The key takeaways that we want to highlight here, based on our experience and the tool sets available, you can seamlessly build your DR on Google Cloud, leveraging both of the regions that we have today, where you can set up your hot architecture, just not regional, but also multi-regional. And whatever can be your data needs, either it can be your backup, disaster recovery, or archival, you can do all that on Google Cloud. Thank you for your time today. Please reach out to us if you are planning to build your disaster recovery. We'll be happy to work with you and help you build your disaster recovery on Google Cloud. Thank you.